Coming up on this Friday edition of Daybreak, Korea and the UAE broaden their ties, signing a number of deals related to the food, culture and medical services sectors. The US ambassador to South Korea, Mark Lippert, is recovering after being slashed in the face. The attacker, who said he was protesting the South Korea-U.S. military drills, is being held by police. First, confirmation that the Korean-Canadian pastor who went missing in North Korea 5 weeks ago has been detained by the Communist state's authorities. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Friday, March 6th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, the US ambassador to South Korea, Mark Lippert, is recovering after being slashed in the face with a knife. Local police have described the 55-year-old man who attacked Lippert on Thursday as a fringe political activist with a history of violence. Officers also raided Kim's home and an office frequented by him this morning, seizing various documents and hard drives. Hwang Sang-hee starts us off.
It was a bloody attack on U.S. ambassador to South Korea, Mark Lippert, by a man claiming to be an advocate of a reunified Korea.
The attack is the first of its kind on a U.S. ambassador to South Korea. It happened as Ambassador Lippert was attending a breakfast meeting here, just across the street from the U.S. Embassy.
A man now identified as 55-year-old Kim Ki-jong slashed Lippert with a 10-inch knife, leaving him with a deep cut on his right cheek and left hand. Covered in blood, the ambassador was transferred to Yonsei Severance Hospital and is now in stable condition. The suspect was arrested immediately, shouting his opposition to the ongoing military drills between Seoul and Washington that began on Monday. Kim has a history of unpredictable behavior. He was given a 2-year prison sentence in 2010 for throwing a piece of concrete at the Japanese ambassador to South Korea. U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Marie Harf said Washington strongly condemns this act of violence. The ambassador, who is a close friend of President Barack Obama, received a phone call from the president, wishing him the very best for a speedy recovery. The South Korean government convened an emergency meeting, calling for a prompt investigation into the issue and pledging bolstered security for diplomatic missions in Seoul. The Foreign Ministry called the attack deeply regrettable, but said the latest turn of events will not leave a dent in their strong alliance.
Both South Korea and the United States believe the incident will not cause any harm to our alliance.
And the ambassador, well known for his activities on Twitter, tweets that he will be back ASAP to advance their alliance. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has called the attack on Mark Lippert senseless. Kerry has tweeted that his thoughts are with Lippert and his family at this difficult time. He added that he was grateful to the Korean people for their support for Lippert and the outpouring of well wishes. Now, US-based Korea experts mostly view the incident as a lone wolf attack and nothing that should affect Korea-US relations at the national level. Bruce Bennett, a senior defense analyst at the Rand Corporation, said the attack could actually strengthen the two countries' alliance by giving even more justification to the need for their annual joint military exercises. Also commenting on CNN, senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations Scott Schneider said the incident will likely strengthen public support in Korea for Seoul's alliance with Washington. And despite the attack on the U.S. ambassador, the apparent motive for the senseless attack, 2 annual joint military exercises will continue as planned. Commander of the U.S. Forces Korea, General Curtis Scaparotti, told reporters on Thursday that the incident will not affect the drills. Seoul and Washington will continue with the 2-week-long Key Resolve drill, which is a computer-simulated exercise, and the 8-week-long field training exercise called Foal Eagle. Now, in the rest of the day's news, it's been confirmed that a missing Korean-Canadian pastor is being held captive in North Korea. Reverend Im Hyun-soo's family says North Korea relayed the information to the Canadian government. A spokesperson for the family told CNN to ask Canadians and the international community to pray for his release and safe return home. The reason for Im's detainment does actually remain unclear, however. The 60-year-old entered North Korea via China at the end of January on a humanitarian mission and has been missing ever since. Im has been actively involved in aid missions to the north since the mid-1990s, helping with various food and education programs. President Park Geunhye is nearing the end of her economic diplomacy tour of the Middle East. On Thursday, the Korean leader held talks with the Crown Prince of the UAE. They agreed to broaden their cooperation from energy and construction into the medical and food sectors as well. Choi Yi-sun, who's travelling with the president, filed this report from Abu Dhabi.
In a deal signed Thursday, Seoul and Abu Dhabi agreed to share halal food technologies and market and certification data. Halal foods are certified according to strict Islamic dietary guidelines, and its global market size is expected to hit $1.6 trillion in 2018. That's some 15% of the entire food and beverage market. Sealing this deal paves the way for Korea to develop its own halal certified products, which it anticipates will double its current $700 million halal exports by 2017. Another deal on agricultural cooperation is expected to open the door for the UAE to bolster its agricultural and food industries, while also giving Korean companies the opportunity to make inroads into the region.
양국이 믿을 수 있는 인증 체계를 공동으로 구축하고 양국 식문화에 맞는 메뉴를 함께 개발한다면 전 세계 식품 산업을 선도해 나갈 수 있을 것입니다.
On the cultural front, the two sides will set up the Gulf region's first Korean cultural center in Abu Dhabi and push for joint development on cultural contents. This is in response to a growing Korean population in the UAE and the UAE's interest in Korean culture and language thanks to the popularity of Korean TV dramas and K-pop. Seoul and Abu Dhabi also agreed to upgrade their collaboration in healthcare, oil field development, and infrastructure. Forging a nuclear cooperation deal in 2009, the UAE became Korea's first strategic partner in the Gulf region. And President Park's office says the leaders of the two sides met 3 times in the past year alone, which goes to show how committed they are to the partnership. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News, Abu Dhabi.
Korean reactor technology has made it through a preliminary review by the U.S. nuclear regulator. Experts say chances are high that Korea will pass the final hurdle in a few years, which would open up vast export opportunities for local businesses. Like one our reports on the growing prospects.
Korea has cleared the first hurdle in a process that could eventually allow it to export nuclear reactors to the United States and elsewhere, as Korea's blueprint for a 1,400-megawatt reactor has passed a preliminary inspection by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The technology for the reactor, the Advanced Power Reactor 1400, is currently being applied to 4 reactors under construction in Korea and 4 in the United Arab Emirates. The U.S. Commission is the country's nuclear watchdog and functions much like the FDA for food and drug regulations.
The NRC is known for its strict nuclear safety regulations, which it strengthened last year. Korea is the first country to pass a new preliminary examination, raising hopes for the expansion of Korea's nuclear reactor business.
Korea has especially high expectations that it will be able to export its reactors to the U.S., as the country uses 30% of the world's nuclear energy. But around 30 of its aging nuclear plants will have to be shut down in the next 10 to 20 years, meaning the demand for replacements will be high. Korea's state-run nuclear power agency says its goal is to get a final yes from the U.S. by 2019. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now in economic news, Korea's inflation rate last year was lower than that of Japan's for the first time in more than 40 years. And this is raising concerns once again that Korea might be on the path to a Japan-style deflation. Here's Son Jung-in with more.
Korea's inflation rate stood at 1.3% in 2014, almost 1.5 percentage points lower than that recorded by Japan. It's the first time since 1973 that Korean consumer prices grew slower than Japan's. While Japan's inflation rate was buoyed by a weak yen and a sales tax hike, prices in Korea remained flat due to a drop in petrochemical products and agricultural goods. But it's not just Japan where prices grew faster than Korea, prompting concerns that the domestic economy might be nearing a Japan-style deflation. Korea's consumer prices were even below the OECD average of 1.7% and the average price growth rate of 1.6% of G7 countries, including Canada and the United States. The Korean government, however, has dismissed concerns over deflation risks, saying the country's prices, excluding volatile energy and food components, rose 2.3% last month from the same period a year ago. For all of last year, the core inflation grew by 2% from 2013. An unnamed finance ministry official says that the government so far has no specific plans to tackle the country's low price trend. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now to the third and final part of our three-part series looking at how the economic slowdown in China is affecting Korea. And today we're going to see how it's a mixed bag, really, with some local exporters actually doing better than ever in China despite the downturn. Shin Se-min reports.
Korea's #1 rice cooker manufacturer, Kuku Electronics, says its leading foreign customers are Chinese. The company's overall sales in China has grown 60% annually since 2013. Such demand even spurred Kuku to go public on Korea's main bourse last year.
Our premium strategy on Chinese consumers has worked out well. Our cooker caters to Chinese food and cooking culture, which has helped to bolster sales.
Kuku Electronics isn't alone. Korean-made consumer goods ranging from home appliances to beauty and fashion items are seeking to expand its presence in the Chinese market, a market that's rapidly growing in tandem with consumer demand. Despite growing success in the Chinese market, the total demand for consumer goods stands at a mere 4%, but for intermediate goods, it's well over 68%. It's a significant gap, but experts are hopeful that the Korean wave and improved income and living standards in China will help stoke local spending.
The Chinese government has been fostering consumption driven by economic development. This means its slowing growth rate won't significantly hurt Korean exporters.
Experts say Korean companies should invest more in marketing and branding their goods so they can keep up with the competition coming out of countries like Japan and France. And with the Korea-China Free Trade Agreement set to take effect next year, Korean exporters will have even more opportunities to make their mark, just like Kuku Electronics. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The tablet PC market was once a shining light in the technology sector, but the luster has dulled in recent years with the advent of bigger and better quality smartphone screens. Sales of Samsung's Galaxy Tab, Apple's iPad and Amazon's Kindle Fire all plunged in the final 3 months of last year. Our Park Geunhye has the details.
The global tablet market saw its first ever on-year drop in sales during the last quarter of 2014. According to market research firm IDC, tablet sales dropped 3.2% in the fourth quarter from the previous year. This is the first sales drop in the global tablet sector since the devices were introduced in 2010. Apple sold some 21 million units of its iPad during the fourth quarter of last year, a decline of nearly 18% from the same period in 2013. Samsung sold 11 million tablets during the same period, a drop of more than 18%. Amazon suffered a whopping 70% drop during the same period. Only China's Lenovo recorded positive growth of about 9% in the fourth quarter from the year before, thanks to marketing and sales strategies like selling its laptops alongside its tablets. Industry watchers say the popularity of large-screen smartphones like the Galaxy Note and iPhone 6 Plus represents an increasing threat to tablets. With the high-end tablet market becoming increasingly saturated, Apple is aiming to expand into the enterprise computing market with the iPad following a partnership deal with IBM last year. Park Geunhye, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the global headlines. We're following this Friday morning from Seoul. For that, we connect to Eunice Kim at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. Much of New York's LaGuardia Airport remains closed this morning after a frightening passenger plane accident overnight. Authorities say Delta Flight 1068 was trying to land amid a snowstorm at about 11 a.m. local time when the jetliner skid about 1.5 kilometers before veering off the runway. As the video shows, it hit an embankment which kept it from hitting the icy waters of Flushing Bay. Port Authority Director Pat Foy said everyone on board the domestic flight was safely evacuated, and at least 2 of the 24 people injured were transported to a hospital. He added the pilot did everything he could to slow the plane. The cause of the accident is being investigated. One of the runways at LaGuardia was reported to have been reopened at 2 p.m. local time amid earlier reports that the major air hub would remain closed until 7 p.m. local time. This as weather authorities had warned of a winter storm in the country's east one day earlier that could dump as much as 30 centimeters of snow. More than 1,600 flights were canceled on Wednesday. The European Central Bank has announced it will launch its quantitative easing program next Monday after it kept interest rates at record lows and raised its economic growth forecast for the next couple years. ECB President Mario Draghi said on Thursday the European Central Bank will begin by buying euro-dominated public sector securities in the secondary market on March 9th. The program will purchase 60 billion euros per month until September of next year, or until inflation reaches closer to its target of 2%. Turning now to the slow but steady battle to reclaim the Iraqi city of Tikrit from the Islamic State group. Military sources say IS militants have tried to obstruct a helicopter attack by setting fire to oil wells northeast of Tikrit. Meanwhile, the United Nations say the number of refugees fleeing the fighting has grown to 28,000, heading toward the city of Samarra, with some families left stranded at checkpoints. Relief supplies are on their way to the region to assist the displaced. A force of some 30,000 Iraqi soldiers and militia are trying to surround the IS-held city of Tikrit, overrun last summer. And another strike on a village in Borno State has left at least 45 people dead. Boko Haram is believed to be behind the raid on the village of Jaba early Tuesday during morning prayers that targeted men and boys. Survivors fled the village some 100 kilometers from the state capital of Maiduguri, and it was set afire. Boko Haram has killed thousands of people in its drive to establish an Islamic State.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the 2015 Kaylee Classic Media Day, which took place on Thursday. And with the new season kicking off tomorrow, the bullseye is on the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. With the head coaches of the 12 teams, including one player from each team, coming together at the media day, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors head coach Park Geunhye took center stage, as many expect the defending champions to be the favorites once again. And while he believes his team will repeat this season, he knows it'll be a tough one, as he predicts the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings and the Pohang Steelers to give them a tough fight. Meanwhile, the new season kicks off this weekend with 3 matches on Saturday and 3 matches on Sunday. Now, if you're not a big football fan, maybe you're a baseball fan. And if you are, get excited because the spring training games begin here in the nation, starting on Saturday. Now, with the addition of the Suwon KT-Wiz in the new season, 10 teams will kick off their spring training games starting tomorrow, with each team playing 14 games from March 7th to the 22nd at 1 p.m. And just because it's spring training games doesn't mean they'll take it lightly, as spring training success usually translates into regular season success. And if you're not a baseball fan, then maybe you're a basketball fan. And if you are, then you can check out the 2015 KBL playoffs, which will tip off on Sunday with the best-of-5 round-of-6 matchups. Now, with the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus and the Wonju Dongbu Promi getting the first-round byes with their top 2 seeds, the Seoul SK Knights will face off against the Incheon Etilan Elephants as the 3rd and 6th seed, while the Changwon LG Sakers will face off against the Goyang Orions as the 4th and 5th seeds. The expectations remain high for the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus, who look to repeat last year's championship victory. Now, going to the 2015 HSBC Women's Champion, the big question was whether or not a Korean would be able to win the season's 4th LPGA Tour title in 5 events. Well, after Thursday, it's looking pretty good. Now, going to the first round of the event, world number 2 Park Geunhye off to a great start, finishing off the round tied for first with Yani Sang at 6 under par, thanks to 5 birdies in the back 9. But the top-ranked teenager, Lydia Ko, looking to catch up to her as she's just 2 strokes behind the leaders at 4 under par overall. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. I'm Lee Ji-yeon here with your latest weather updates. Well, it's Gyeongchip today. The 3rd of the 24 solar terms literally means awakening of insects, and it implies the weather is getting warmer. And to meet the term, the top temperature will jump up to the mild side, hovering near 10 degrees for the metro area, including here in Seoul, and over 10 for the southern provinces. And the day will kick off under lots of sunshine. A few patches of clouds could be rolling in, but for the most of the time, we can expect to have clear blue skies across the nation throughout the day today, feeling like spring this afternoon. So on that note, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. So daily low here in Seoul is kicking off at freezing mark, and the daytime high will hike up to 9. Then Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 11 and 12, and Busan will top out at 10 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It seems like Jeju and Daejeon Island should see a high of 10 and 11 respectively. Dokdo rises to 5, but Mount Keungang remains chilly, only peaking at -2. And it will be even warmer for the upcoming weekend, so hope you get to take the advantage of nice weather for the weekend. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour, 7 a.m. Korea time. Young Kim and Oh Jin-ju will have a packed show for you, so stay tuned for that. If we don't see you, have a wonderful weekend. The weather is looking good, as Ji-yeon mentioned in the weather forecast. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.